Welcome to Book by Book, where we take on crucial topics and extract the wisdom you need to apply immediately.
If you're anything like us, or frankly, like most people in the modern world, you are probably excellent at starting things.
Oh, absolutely. We start diets, we start side hustles, we start reading these long, ambitious books.
Yeah, and we start new habits with this incredible burst of enthusiasm. But then a few weeks go by.
And that excitement just evaporates.
It does. It completely vanishes.
That initial sort of blinding energy, that spark of motivation, it is so fleeting. And before you know it, you look around and you have this mental inventory of half-finished projects.
I think we all have that list. The app you started coding, the novel that's stuck on chapter 4.
The expensive workout equipment that's now a very fancy clothes rack.
Exactly. And this universal challenge, this pattern of starting strong but failing to sustain, that's the focus of Peter Hollins' really crucial work, Finish What You Start.
The full title is Finish What You Start, The Art of Following Through, Taking Action, Executing, and Self-Discipline.
And Hollins, he doesn't see this cycle, this, enthusiastic start followed by a quiet abandonment as some kind of moral failure.
Right. It's not a sign of weakness.
No. He diagnoses it as a systemic, almost a technical flaw. He argues that finishing is not some character trait reserved for a select few. It is a skill set.
A trainable skill.
A trainable, repeatable process built on very specific, interconnected capacity.
And that distinction is so critical, isn't it? It's not about finding more motivation, because motivation will always fade. It's about building a better infrastructure for yourself.
Precisely. Hollins is a researcher of human psychology, peak performance, and he delivers a tactical blueprint.
So our mission in this summary is to guide you through his core ideas, to really dissect the practical takeaways, the how-to, so you can reliably convert that initial surge of intention into tangible, irreversible completion.
And the central idea is simple, but it's also devastatingly true. Starting is cheap, it's easy, but completion, that is the true measure of execution. And every single time you fail to finish something, you kind of erode your own self-confidence. You clutter your mind with what-ifs.
And you miss out on that vital identity-building power of actually seeing something through to the end.
Finishing, on the other hand, it builds this unstoppable momentum. It builds credibility, not just to the world, but, and this is more important, to yourself.
So how do we get there? I mean, where do we start?
Well, Hollins provides a really structured framework, which is what we're going to explore today.
Okay.
We're going to dive deep into these 4 foundational capacities he calls the muscles of follow-through.
The muscles, I like that.
And then we'll spend a good amount of time analyzing the 2 major obstacle categories that always seem to derail our progress.
The practical, logistical mistakes.
Which he calls inhibiting tactics, yeah.
And then the internal, fear-based barriers.
The psychological roadblocks.
This book really gives us the language to diagnose our own failures, which I suppose is the very first step toward overcoming them. So let's start by building that bedrock.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's unpack this core idea. Finishing isn't a single act. It's a composite skill set that you have to train, just like an athlete trains multiple distinct muscle groups.
Right, you wouldn't just do one exercise and expect to be a world-class athlete.
Exactly. And Hollins identifies 4 of these capacities that are absolutely interlinked. He says if you neglect even one of them, the whole system just fails.
I think a good way to think about it is this. You don't bench press to run a marathon, but both of those activities require strength.
Different kinds of strength.
Different kinds, yeah. And likewise, you need different mental muscles for the different phases of a project. So if starting the project is that initial spark, then these 4 muscles are the mechanisms, the kindling, the fuel, the oxygen, and the insulation, that make sure that fire keeps burning hot until you get to the final completed result.
Okay, so let's break them down. What is the first of these foundational muscles?
The first one is focus.
And we talk about focus all the time, but it's usually a very vague idea. Hollins gives it a very concrete definition.
He does. He defines it as the capacity for clear, undivided attention on one single defined goal.
1. Not 3, not 5. 1.
Just one.
Okay.
And, in our current hyper-distracted world, focus is probably our most depleted resource.
I would agree with that.
Hollins really emphasizes that success requires singleness of purpose. When you try to multitask, which, as we now know, is really just switching between tasks very rapidly.
Yeah, task switching. It's not doing 2 things at once.
Exactly. You're just doing 2 things poorly. And when you do that, you prevent the deep cognitive application that you need for any substantial work. The scattered mind is the enemy of completion.
And what about vague goals, like I want to get healthier?
That's a perfect example. If your goal is vague, like get healthier or grow my dayness, your focus is immediately undermined. There's no single target for your mental energy to lock onto.
So what are some of the tactical fixes he suggests for strengthening that focus muscle? Because just telling someone don't be distracted is frankly useless advice.
It's terrible advice. The fix revolves around environmental engineering and cognitive commitment.
Okay, environmental engineering, what does that look like?
So first, you radically increase the clarity of your goal. Before you start, you ask yourself, what is the single non-negotiable metric of success for this 1 hour of work?
1 hour. So you're breaking it down.
You're breaking it down. And second, you create what he calls a focus sheath around your work. That doesn't just mean turning off notifications.
It's more than that.
Much more. It means physically removing the source of temptation. If your phone is your biggest distraction, it doesn't just go on silent, it goes in another room.
Right. And he also talks about how we sometimes disguise distraction as preparation, right? Like endlessly researching articles.
Oh, that's a huge one. If your biggest distraction is browsing research articles, you physically block those websites for a specific time window. Hollins points out that the effort to maintain focus actually decreases the more effort you put into designing an environment that demands it.
You're making focus the path of least resistance. You're reducing the need for constant willpower.
That's the goal.
Okay, so that makes perfect sense. Focus gets you locked onto the target. But what happens when the work stops being exciting and new?
Yes.
That's where the second muscle, self-discipline, comes in. And this is where most of us, especially the novelty seekers, just completely collapse.
It's so true. Self-discipline is the engine of sustained performance. It's the ability to keep working even when that enthusiasm is completely gone.
When the work is tedious.
When it's tedious, when the novelty is worn off, it's the resistance, muscle resisting that temptation to seek easier, more immediate gratification.
And Hollins is very clear about this. If you're just relying on feeling inspired to do the work,
You're surrendering your output to chance. You're waiting for lightning to strike. Self-discipline is about maintaining the structure and showing up consistently, regardless of your emotional state or your energy level.
I sometimes wonder about the distinction here. I mean, if I have a great plan and I'm really focused, isn't self-discipline just a natural byproduct of that? Hollins separates them so clearly. Why do you think that's necessary?
It's necessary because focus tells you where to look, but self-discipline tells you how long to keep looking, even when it starts to hurt.
Ah, okay.
Think about a long-distance runner. Focus makes sure they stay on the course. But discipline is what ensures they keep pumping their legs when every single fiber of their being is screaming at them to stop.
That's a great analogy.
So you can be hyper-focused on your manuscript, for example, but without the discipline to write those 500 words on a terrible day when you're doubting the entire project, focus alone is not going to get you past the finish line.
Discipline is about accepting that necessary discomfort.
It's exactly that. It's about building these non-negotiable habits that function on a schedule, not on your desire.
And that leads us directly to the third capacity he identifies, action or execution. This one might seem a bit redundant at first, but why does Hollins isolate action as its own distinct muscle?
He isolates it because action is the literal difference between planning and doing.
Between theory and practice.
Yes. You can have magnificent focus, a crystal clear goal. You can have incredible self-discipline, the willingness to work through the pain. But if your system is just set up to perpetually refine or research or prepare,
If you're trapped in analysis paralysis.
then you are not executing. Goals are just dreams without execution. The muscle of action is about minimizing the friction to physically produce the result.
So action is about that non-negotiable production metric.
Yeah.
The writer doesn't finish the book by thinking about writing. They finish by putting words on the page.
Exactly. Or the entrepreneur, they finish the product by launching the minimally viable version, not by endlessly designing the perfect 2.0 version that never sees the light of day.
It's a commitment to output.
It is. And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the true test of long-term completion. We have persistence.
Now, persistence is often confused with discipline, but they serve different roles, don't they? Especially over the long haul, over months or even years. What defines persistence in Hollins's model?
Persistence is the resilience you need when external factors hit you or when the project itself becomes just overwhelmingly difficult.
So discipline gets you through a bad Tuesday afternoon.
And persistence gets you through a major setback, like a failed product launch, a scathing review from your editor, or a massive shift in the market that makes all your previous work feel, moot.
Progress inevitably falters. You're going to hit walls. You're going to get critiques that feel deeply personal, and you will question the entire endeavor.
You will. You'll find yourself in what people call the trough of disillusionment.
The trough of disillusionment. I know it well.
We all do. And persistence is the belief in that long-term goal that powers you through that trough. If you're writing a 30-chapter book, for example. Focus keeps you on topic. Discipline makes you write every single day. Action produces the words. But persistence is what ensures that when chapter 15 gets rejected by your beta readers, you don't just delete the file.
You rewrite chapter 15.
You rewrite it and you finish the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
It's the unwillingness to allow a setback to become an endpoint.
So if we look at those four muscles together, focus, discipline, action, and persistence, the key takeaway for you, the listener, is really diagnostic. We need to stop seeing our failure to finish as just this generalized fault.
Right, like I'm just not a finisher.
Exactly. And instead, we need to look at which specific muscle is weak.
Absolutely. Hollins' framework acts as this targeted self-audit. You should ask yourself some hard questions.
Such as?
Well, 1, am I constantly drifting between projects and goals? That's a focus issue.
Okay.
2, do I quit as soon as the work becomes boring or uncomfortable? That's a discipline issue.
That's a big one for a lot of people.
It is. 3, am I constantly planning, optimizing, or researching instead of actually producing anything?
That's an action issue.
Yeah.
Analysis paralysis again.
And finally, 4, do I just fold at the first sign of genuine difficulty or a real setback? That's a persistence issue.
That targeted diagnosis is just so crucial. Because if you know you have a focus problem, you don't need to try and brute force your way through with persistence.
No, you need to engage in strict single-task environment control.
And if you realize you have an action problem, you need to implement a stricter daily output metric.
This is how we move from this vague aspiration of I want to finish things to a tactical repair plan.
Now that we've established the four muscles we need to build, we really have to understand the landscape of failure. Why do these muscles atrophy? Why do we hit these roadblocks?
This is where it gets really interesting.
It does, because Hollins gives us a taxonomy of failure. He divides obstacles into two fundamentally different types. Understanding this distinction is lesson 2, and it determines the type of solution you actually need.
That is the critical piece right there. You wouldn't treat a broken leg with an aspirin, right? And similarly, you can't fix a deep, fear-based internal barrier with a new time management app.
So what are the two categories?
Hollins separates obstacles into inhibiting tactics, which are external and logistical, and psychological roadblocks, which are internal and based on fear or our need for comfort.
Let's start with Category A, inhibiting tactics. These are the practical mistakes, the poor strategies, the logistical blunders we make when we're setting up the project itself.
And these are, ironically, the easier ones to fix.
Why is that?
They're fixable through better structural design, through that environmental engineering we talked about earlier.
So what are some classic examples?
The classics that Hollins provides are things like setting wildly unrealistic goals, which just leads to burnout.
Or setting too many goals at the same time.
Yes, which fragments that vital focus muscle. Then there's poor time management, bad scheduling, and of course, procrastination.
I want to spend a moment on that procrastination point, because the way Hollins frames it is so insightful. He says procrastination is often disguised as preparation.
It's so true. We see this everywhere. The person who wants to start a fitness journey but spends 2 solid weeks comparing 16 different brands of workout shoes.
Or the aspiring writer who spends days, maybe weeks, researching the absolute perfect font and heading structure for their article instead of just writing the article.
And the intention feels productive, doesn't it? You tell yourself, I'm just optimizing the system.
I'm getting ready.
I'm getting ready. But in reality, you are avoiding the difficult, high-stakes moment of starting the real work. You are fiddling with these low-stakes details to avoid the inherent vulnerability of execution.
So that's a tactical flaw. It's a poor strategy you're using to soothe your anxiety.
Exactly. And the fix is a rigid limit on your planning. You say, I have 30 minutes to plan, and then I must execute. The solution is external structure, not internal therapy.
Another great example of a tactical flaw is that shiny object phenomenon. It's not quite a psychological roadblock, but it's a logistical mistake.
Right, it's getting distracted by an adjacent goal. You decide to start learning French, but then a week later you think, wait, Spanish is actually more globally useful, so you switch.
And then 2 weeks later, Italian seems more romantic, so you start that.
And you never give any single project enough runway to actually reach completion. It's a dissipation of energy.
And that can be fixed by the manifesto, which I know we'll get to in a bit. But now we have to transition to the much more dangerous category.
Category B, psychological roadblocks.
These are the internal fear-based barriers that are rooted so deeply in our self-perception and our wiring for comfort.
And they require a different kind of fix. They require cognitive restructuring, not just a schedule change.
These are the internal enemies we all have to confront. And the list Hollins provides is just devastatingly relatable.
It really is.
The fear of failure, the paralyzing fear of judgment from other people, debilitating perfectionism.
Distraction caused by seeking that immediate novelty, that dopamine seeking, and just the general avoidance of necessary discomfort.
Can you give an example that highlights the difference between a tactic and a roadblock?
Sure. Let's say I failed to complete my spreadsheet. If the reason is that I kept scheduling meetings during my focus time, that's a tactic issue. It's a scheduling flaw.
Okay, that's fixable with a better calendar.
Right. But if I refuse to submit the finished spreadsheet because I'm terrified my boss is going to criticize the formatting, that's perfectionism.
And that's rooted in the fear of judgment.
Exactly. And that fear creates paralysis. The project is kept in this perpetual state of potential because as long as it's unfinished, it can't be judged as flawed.
I think that connection between perfectionism and fear of judgment is something people often miss. They'll claim they are just striving for excellence.
Right, I have high standards.
But Hollins would argue that perfectionism is often simply a sophisticated form of failure avoidance. If you find yourself paralyzed by that last 10% of a task, the polishing, the submitting, you're likely dealing with a deep psychological roadblock.
Absolutely. And the treatment for this is completely different. You can't solve fear with a better calendar app. You need cognitive restructuring.
So what does that look like?
Hollins suggests reframing failure itself. Ask yourself, what is the absolute worst-case scenario if this project fails? And usually it's not catastrophic.
It's manageable.
It's manageable. Then you ask the more important question. What is the cost if I don't finish? And that cost, the erosion of your identity, the loss of self-trust, is often far, far greater than the risk of failure.
Let's touch on the neurological aspect of seeking novelty. Why does our brain prefer jumping to a new, exciting project over pushing through the hard, boring middle of the current one?
It really comes down to dopamine.
The feel-good chemical.
Exactly. Starting a new project, buying a new online course, or planning some big strategic pivot, it provides an immediate hit of novelty and positive expectation. It's a quick dopamine rush.
While the actual work,
Pushing through the middle, 60% of a tough, complex task provides delayed gratification, and it requires the sustained effort of your prefrontal cortex. Our evolutionary wiring just favors the immediate reward.
so bouncing between projects is often a psychological roadblock designed to avoid the discomfort of sustained effort.
That's a perfect way to put it.
So when we're auditing our own tasks, we have to become detectives. We have to ask, is the problem that I don't know what to do next, which is a tactic or logistics problem?
Or is the problem? I know exactly what to do, but I feel an overwhelming sense of dread or resistance to actually doing it, which is a roadblock or avoidance problem.
Knowing the root cause dictates the strategy.
It's everything. If the problem is physical logistics, your environment, your schedule, the fix is external.
Right.
Stricter rules, better scheduling, environmental changes.
But if the problem is internal fear, judgment, comfort seeking, the fix has to be internal.
Right. Changing the narrative, confronting the fear, and using cognitive tools to override your limbic system. If you fail to diagnose the root cause accurately, you'll just perpetually apply the wrong solution and you'll keep on quitting.
We've established the skills we need and the obstacles to avoid, but the reality is that initial excitement is inherently fragile. If we rely on it, we're going to fail.
Every time.
So how does Hollins advise us to transition from that fleeting spark to a continuous, durable fire of action? This brings us to lesson 3, developing motivation that sustains.
We need to fundamentally redefine our relationship with motivation itself. Hollins contrasts the two types, external and internal.
Okay, so external motivators would be things like money, praise.
Money, praise, validation, and imposed deadline from your boss. These things are often powerful enough to get us started.
But they're conditional.
They're completely conditional. They disappear when the money runs out, when the praise stops, or when the deadline passes. And that's why relying on them leads to the project just collapsing.
So the durable motivation has to come from within. It has to be internal.
Yes. This is motivation that's rooted in your personal values, your sense of purpose, your identity, and the meaningful outcome of the project itself.
Can you give an example?
Sure. If you're starting a business because your family told you to, that's an external motivation. You are far more likely to quit
Then if.
than if you start that business because it solves a problem that deeply violates your sense of order in the world. That's internal.
The shift is powerful. You're not working to get a result, you're working to become the type of person who achieves that result.
That's it. Hollins emphasizes that finishing builds identity. An author is someone who finishes books. A runner is someone who finishes races.
So when your identity is tied to the act of completion, the motivation becomes durable because the alternative quitting violates who you believe yourself to be.
Exactly.
Now, to truly anchor this internal motivation, Hollins introduces a crucial concept that is so often ignored in productivity circles.
Opportunity cost.
Yes. Tell us about that.
Finishing requires sacrifice. There's no way around it. We tend to focus on what we gain by completing the project, the revenue, the published book, the fitter body.
The good stuff.
The good stuff. But Hollins stresses that your internal why must be strong enough to justify the opportunity cost. That is, everything you are consciously choosing not to do while you are working on this goal.
That reframes the stakes completely. If I am writing my book every Tuesday night, the opportunity cost is missing time with my family or not pursuing a different, less demanding hobby.
Right. And if your internal motivation for writing that book is weak, the cost of that sacrifice is going to feel way too high.
And my brain will easily rationalize quitting. Family is more important, etc.
So the application here is rigorous self-questioning. What specific time, energy, and resources am I sacrificing to see this through?
And if you can look at that list of sacrifices and still feel compelled by the identity, you will forge upon completion.
Then your motivation is durable. If the sacrifices feel too painful, you need to either strengthen your why or acknowledge that this project might not align with your deepest values.
So moving on from that internal fuel, Hollins advises against relying on that fickle thing we call willpower at all. This leads us directly to lesson 4, the absolute necessity of a written set of rules.
What he calls the finishing manifesto.
The manifesto. I love the sound of that.
It's the structural container for your durable motivation. If your motivation is the fuel, the manifesto is the engine and the operating manual.
So it's a tactical document that dictates your action every day, regardless of how you're feeling.
Exactly. It's the set of rules you establish when you are logical and disciplined, which you then follow blindly when you are tired or uninspired or tempted to quit.
So what are the necessary elements of this manifesto? It can't just be a wish list, can it?
No. It has to be highly specific and actionable. First, you need clear I will statements.
Okay, like what?
These are non-negotiable, measurable actions. For example, I will work on Project X for 90 minutes immediately after my first coffee, before I check any email.
Very specific.
Second, you need clear I won't statements. These are your protective boundaries. I won't check social media until 1 p.m.
Or, I won't start any new side research projects until Project X is finished.
Yes. These statements directly combat those inhibiting tactics and psychological roadblocks we talked about.
And he also mentions task limits.
He does. He suggests setting a rigid maximum, maybe 3 critical tasks per day. This combats the problem of fragmentation and overwhelm, and it strengthens your focus muscle.
What about that self-diagnosis check?
That's a simple rule for the manifesto. When I feel resistance, I will take 1 minute to determine if I am acting from laziness, which requires discipline to overcome, or from genuine fear, which requires reframing.
That manifesto provides the constant pressure to move forward. But what happens in the heat of the moment? When that temptation is right in front of you, the notification pops up, the craving for comfort hits.
And you are about to quit.
Yes. What then?
That is where the most powerful immediate tool in the book comes in, the 10-10-10 reflection tool.
Okay, the 10-10-10 tool.
And this tool isn't about using raw willpower. It's about forcing your prefrontal cortex, your rational long-term planner, to override your impulsive short-term limbic system.
So walk us through the mechanism of this 10-10-10 test.
When you feel that urge to quit or procrastinate or get distracted, you stop. And you ask yourself 3 questions about the consequence of that immediate action.
Okay, 3 questions.
1, what are the consequences in 10 minutes? The answer is usually temporary relief, pleasure, or the avoidance of something unpleasant.
Right, the short-term win.
2, what are the consequences in 10 hours? That's usually slight guilt, a minor delay in your project, maybe some frustration with yourself.
Still manageable.
But the third question is the critical lever. 3, what are the consequences in 10 days?
That final question forces the calculation of future regret.
It does. If the 10-day consequence is significant, like missing a crucial milestone, feeling a deep loss of momentum, or confirming to yourself, yet again, that you are not the finisher you want to be.
That concrete future regret becomes a far stronger, more durable motivation than the temporary, weak promise of immediate comfort.
It shifts the entire motivational landscape from how can I make myself feel better right now to how can I avoid the profound disappointment I know I will feel 10 days from now.
The regret becomes the internal lever, guiding you back to the system your manifesto dictates.
Without that map, you just drift. With it, you steer intentionally toward completion.
We've covered the internal architecture, the muscles, the motivation, and the rules. Now let's get into the logistics, creating an environment and a repeatable daily structure where finishing isn't a matter of willpower, but a matter of inevitability.
This is Lesson 5, establish a daily system.
And this is where Hollins provides what is maybe his most actionable wisdom.
System over goal.
System over goal. We are so goal-obsessed in our society. We set these massive, glittering goals.
We do. But goals are what you want to achieve. Finish the manuscript. Systems are how you achieve them. The daily ritual of writing 500 words at 7 a.m.
So systems are the creation of reliable habits that ensure you follow through, especially when motivation is low.
Exactly. If the goal is the destination, the system is the vehicle and the road. You need to optimize the system, not just stare longingly at the destination.
And a key component of that system is controlling the battlefield, the no distraction zone.
Absolutely. Your focus muscle is weakened by a high-friction environment. We have to move beyond wishful thinking and engage in rigorous environmental control.
So we're talking about practical, maybe even extreme steps.
Yes. Physically removing temptations like your phone or tablet to a different room,
Oh.
blocking non-essential software, even using different physical spaces for different types of work.
That leads to the concepts of batching tasks and default actions. How do these fit into the system?
Batching tasks means dealing with similar activities all at once. If you're constantly checking email, then replying to texts, then doing deep work, then planning meetings in rotation.
You're incurring massive cognitive switching costs.
You are. It kills your momentum. Hollins insists you should batch all of your communication tasks into one 30-minute block and reserve the rest of your core time for single task, deep work.
And what about default actions? This sounds like a way to combat decision fatigue.
That's exactly what it is. Every decision you make, no matter how small, depletes your willpower.
So when you sit down to work, your brain shouldn't have to decide, should I check email first or should I outline?
No. A default action eliminates that choice entirely. The system dictates. When I sit at this desk, the first action is always opening the writing software and typing today's date,
The starting friction is zero.
which minimizes the trigger for procrastination.
So the ultimate goal of Lesson 5 is to establish an action protocol, a defined ritual you execute before you even start the hard work.
Yes, a ritual reduces friction and it creates a cue action link in your brain for the task. It often involves the same time, the same place, and the same sequential process for collecting your materials, organizing your thoughts, and sitting down.
By standardizing the preparation, the prep itself becomes an unconscious habit.
You want the system to be so automated that the act of starting feels less like a monumental decision and more like, I don't know, brushing your teeth.
Now, even with the best systems and the strongest internal motivators, failure is still common because we fall into these common, predictable traps. This brings us to Lesson 6.
The deadly pitfalls.
Yes.
These pitfalls are the psychological cracks in the road that can derail even the most organized finisher. And recognizing them is how you steer around them. The first and most common pitfall is false hope syndrome.
This sounds like setting high expectations, which I thought was supposed to be a good thing.
Only if they are realistic. False hope syndrome is expecting massive, unsustainable progress way too quickly.
And then quitting when those grand, unrealistic benchmarks aren't hit.
Exactly.
Huh?
People start a new diet expecting to lose 15 pounds in the first week, feel great, and never have a single struggle.
And when reality inevitably hits, the weight loss stalls, they feel tired, they crave sugar, they see this normal plateau as a total failure.
And they quit. Hollins stresses the importance of setting smaller, achievable, consistent steps. Focus on winning the day, not winning the month, to avoid the crash of false hope.
Okay, so the second pitfall is one we touched on briefly earlier, overthinking.
Overthinking is when your planning becomes a form of avoidance. It's when you endlessly debate the perfect technology stack or the ideal marketing strategy,
Or the ultimate organizational structure for your notes.
instead of doing the actual, messy, primary work. You convince yourself that you're engaging in this deep strategic effort.
But you're actually using planning as a shield to protect yourself against execution risk.
That's it. And the solution is rigid time boxing for your planning. The rule of thumb should be spend 80% of your time executing and 20% planning. If those numbers are reversed, you are overthinking.
The third pitfall highlights the need for some deep self-awareness, failing to know yourself.
A system is only durable if it's personalized for you. So many people adopt productivity systems wholesale from gurus,
Right, they decide they have to wake up at 4 a.m. and work in total silence because that's what some CEO does.
without ever testing if those systems actually align with their natural energy cycles. If you're a night owl, forcing yourself to do deep work at 4 a.m. is just setting yourself up for failure. It's unnecessary resistance.
So you have to experiment and figure out your own operational truths.
You have to. When are your peak focus times? Do you need instrumental music or complete silence? What is the real trigger for your distraction? Ignoring these things makes any system brittle.
And the final, and maybe the most insidious pitfall, is quitting disguised as growth.
Ah, yes. The strategic pivot that isn't strategic at all.
This often plagues people with a lot of creative ideas. When Project A reaches that difficult, grinding middle, the part that requires real persistence,
Suddenly, a brilliant, new, exciting idea for Project B pops into their head.
and they justify abandoning Project A as a strategic pivot or pursuing a higher leverage opportunity.
When in reality, they're simply avoiding the pain, the discomfort, and the uncertainty of the hard middle part of the first project.
So they're essentially just reinforcing the habit of quitting when things get tough.
Exactly. Every time you quit, you train your brain that avoidance is a successful strategy. To combat this, Hollins suggests a strict quarantine period.
A quarantine period.
Before you allow yourself to pivot, you must commit to completing a defined, small milestone on the original project. If the new idea is truly brilliant, it will still be brilliant in 30 days.
And if you can't even finish that small milestone,
Then the pivot is likely a psychological roadblock disguised as a tactical choice. Recognizing these 4 potholes ensures you stay on the road to completion.
to bring this comprehensive roadmap together, we've covered the 4 skills, the 2 types of obstacles, the source of durable motivation, and the necessary systems. So now let's distill this into the 10 most practical, immediate steps Hollins recommends for you to apply right now.
These are the tactical fixes. They're designed to strengthen those 4 follow-through muscles and overcome both the internal and external challenges that constantly derail our progress.
Okay, number 1, choose one current project, the one you care about most, and commit to finishing it. Set a clear, non-negotiable end date and put all other potential projects on a deferred list.
You have to eliminate the temptation of fragmentation.
Number 2,
Write your finishing manifesto today. This tactical document must list 3 to 5 daily must-dos that move the project forward, and 3 to 5 clear things you won't do that protect your focus and make it visible.
Number 3, conduct a brutal audit of your 4 completion muscles: focus, discipline, action, and persistence. Identify your weakest link, because that's where you need to apply your repair effort first.
Number 4, define your internal motivators. Go beyond money or praise. Why does finishing this task matter to your fundamental identity? Use that identity shift as your sustaining fuel.
Number 5, the next time you feel that urge to quit, to procrastinate, or to get distracted, immediately apply the 10-10-10 test. Focus intensely on the feeling of regret you know you will experience 10 days from now.
Number 6, create a rigorous no distraction zone for your most critical work blocks. This means physical removal of stimuli and scheduling single task time where no interruptions are allowed. You have to treat this time as sacred.
Number 7, build a solid system or ritual around the start of your work. Same time, same place, same process. Create an action protocol so that starting is automatic and requires zero decision-making.
Number 8, keep track of your progress visually. Use a checklist, a large calendar, or a journal to see the accumulated momentum. Seeing those wins, no matter how small, reinforces your discipline and your belief in yourself.
Number 9, set realistic expectations for your progress to avoid that false hope pitfall. Focus on achieving consistent, small daily wins, the 1% improvements, rather than chasing grand, unrealistic milestones.
Because those are guaranteed to lead to demoralization. And number 10, establish a weekly reflection habit. Review your manifesto and your system. What did you finish and why? What did you avoid? Was it a tactical flaw or a psychological roadblock? Adjust the rules based on evidence, not on emotion.
What's so fascinating here is how all these lessons connect. Following through isn't just about maximizing your output, it fundamentally transforms your identity.
It really does. It's the difference between being someone who casually has ideas and being someone who reliably creates results.
And if we look back at the top 5 core lessons from the book, they really summarize the actionable shift that it demands from us.
Okay, let's recap them.
First, mastery of completion is achieved by strengthening those 4 muscles: focus, discipline, action, and persistence.
Second, always remember that procrastination is rarely laziness. It's almost always a system failure or an emotional roadblock that's hiding behind fear or perfectionism.
Third, your greatest tool for building confidence is to finish one thing. Just one. Use that sense of accomplishment to build momentum for the next thing.
Fourth, temptation wins when your strategy is sleeping. Use the 10-10-10 reflection tool to make calculated long-term decisions, especially in your moments of weakness.
And finally, systems beat goals. Structure your environment and your daily process to make completion the inevitable outcome.
That's the essence of it.
That was our comprehensive summary of Peter Hollins' Finish What You Start. We hope this roadmap provides the clarity and the tactical steps you need to clear that mental backlog and turn intentions into irreversible action.
You know, if we connect this back to the bigger picture, Hollins suggests that the value of completion is often internal, not external. He says, and I'm quoting here, "If you don't finish, you don't learn what you're made of."
Wow.
The ultimate win might not be the finished product itself, but the self-knowledge, the identity, and the profound resilience you gain by pushing through the discomfort of those final hard steps.
If you found this book summary helpful, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel Book by Book. We also encourage you to like this summary and share it with others who need help completing their goals. Your support motivates us to keep bringing you the best book summaries. Thank you for joining us. Now go finish something.